Welcome, everyone, to this Clubhouse event. Your energy, your health, be responsible with empowering solutions. The topic is protecting our children. So I would like to first start by raising the vibration in the space that we're in now by calling for the highest possible vibration and calling for the truth to come forward into our discussion today so that we may see the truth in all that we see, so that we may hear the truth in all that we hear, and so that we may speak the truth in all that we say. Shall we be in that frequency of truth, and shall we have nothing but the truth? Shall we call for the power divine feminine to bring balance back into our world, showing us the way through honor, respect, and gratitude? Calling for the power divine feminine to bring balance back into our world, showing us the way through honor, respect, and gratitude. Calling for the highest possible vibration, bring forth balance through the way with honor, respect, and bad gratitude. And shall we call for the highest possible vibration, calling for the highest possible vibration, calling for the highest possible vibration. I now ask for everyone to take a sip of water and ask for the water to hydrate our brains and body. Water is that medium that holds memory and will assist in the flow of the information that we share here together on Clubhouse. And shall we now take a deep breath in, bringing in peace, and release, exhaling out. Taking another breath in, bringing in joy and gratitude, and exhaling out. And another deep breath in, bringing in life into our bodies, and exhale, releasing out all that does not serve us. And like Kitchen Veritas, everyone, I call forth the oneness and truth of the information shared by each and every one of us on this call, calling in that frequency of truth and all that is truth with honor, respect, and gratitude to you all. And for those who are unfamiliar with the term, the greeting in Lakesh is a Mayan greeting for oneness, signifying unity where everything and everyone is interconnected. It is that idea of community where we can share with one another our ideas, goals, and aspirations. And veritas, the Latin word for truth, to see the truth in all things. So therefore, Enlocation Veritas is that declaration of oneness and truth in which we are clearing our spaces, the space we're in now, so that we may be able to bring forth a truthful, elevated, enlightened discussion this evening, clearing away those ill thoughts that we tend to pick up and carry with us from our everyday life experiences. Remember, our words have power. They hold power, so it is important that we use our words carefully, using words of upliftment, encouragement, and enlightenment, using impeccability. And by doing so as a collective, will help to transform our spaces and places into higher frequencies that will result in better experiences in our lives and will assist in raising the vibrations with those who we meet. So, Enlocation Veritas, everyone, with honor, respect, and gratitude. So I'd like to everyone to again hold their water in their hands and with intention in mind, send the frequency of Enlakesh to your water. Then take a sip of your water, assisting the signal and incorporating that elevated frequency of Enlakesh into our bodies and will assist in the ease and flow of the information we share this evening. All right, everyone. I'm glad you're able to get on because we had a little bit of a challenge last week because I think they've updated our system, but we're going to move forward now. We've got quite a few people here, and I'm glad. Thank you for joining. So let's start with our current events. So last week, we had technical difficulties and challenges on Clubhouse with the mandates. So I wanted to revisit what we spoke on. It was just a few of us that were on because I believe that this is a very, very important information that needs to be shared. And it pertains to protecting our children. So last week, there was a story that was released regarding the Dalai Lama and a little 7-year-old boy. It was posted all over the social media where the Dalai Lama confronts the little boy and the Dalai Lama sticks his tongue out to the little boy. And in the video, the little boy, you could see him taken aback, but then the Dalai Lama encourages him to come and get closer to him so that their tongues could meet. So I was like, what is that? Tongue sucking a child? Yuck. And in my opinion, that's just downright creepy. And then you have to ask yourself, what does a 7-year-old boy have to say to the Dalai Lama? This is a 87-year-old man, and he's noted to be promoting peace and freedom. But then I posed the question to Google, why does one want to meet the Dalai Lama? And responses that I found through my search was that he's humble, tolerant, supporter of freedom. He has a deep understanding of teachings, plus excellent communication skills, including the rare ability to make the teachings understandable to foreigners. And people are humbled by his simplicity and warmth. So I'm going to give you a little history on the Dalai Lama. So he's lived in India in exile since 1959, when the Chinese army eliminated an uprising in Tibet. And so this religious and political leader stood at the head of a nonviolent opposition to China. And he was awarded the Nobel Prize winner prize, excuse me. He was awarded the Peace Prize in 1989 for his work advocating nonviolence means to free Tibet from China. And he's considered the 14th Dalai Lama. And did you know that he was actually financially supported by the CIA between the late 1950s and the mid 1970s, receiving $180,000 a year? The funds were paid to him personally, although he said it was used mostly um, for Tibet government exile activities, such as fund foreign offices and lobbying for international support. But then there's also the CIA Tibet program, which is nearly 2 decades long, was considered an anti-Chinese covert operation focused on Tibet, which consisted of political action, propaganda, paramilitary intelligence, based on U.S. government arrangements made with the brothers of the 14th Dalai Lama. So there's always like a political agenda, and bottom line is that there's always an underlying political agenda for many of those so-called humanitarian acts, which are politically driven. And, you got to think about it. Are these agendas for the good of humanity? And this information is no different from stories from other religious leaders, such as the priests, ministers, and using our children as prey. Any comments? I see you've just joined us, Tiffany. I don't know if you heard about but I just shared the story regarding the Dalai Lama, that incident on social media.
In La Question Veritas with honor, respect, and gratitude. No, I just joined and I did not hear.
All right,
I don't want to make you
brief,
have to repeat, though.
but yeah, well, it's important, so I'll repeat it just quickly. Brief summary. So, it was all in social media last week, and it's interesting how it just kind of like it was like 1 or 2 days, but this is very important. So, the story was the Dalai Lama and a little 7-year-old boy, and it was posted all over social media where the Dalai Lama confronts this little boy, and he then sticks his tongue out to the little boy. So, in the video, you can see that he's taken aback, and then the Dalai Lama encourages him to come together, so that it's kind of like you see their tongues are meeting. They kind of blurt it out, but you could still see the Dalai Lama with his tongue sticking out.
What?
I was saying that's like some creepiness too. I was like, oh man.
I don't have words. What in the world? It's just infiltrated in every facet.
Yeah, yeah, and it's no different from our
No.
other political leaders.
Right. Right.
On our, using the priests and the ministers using children as prey. So, also, what I wanted to share is that the Jesuits have a famous quote: "Give me the child for the first 7 years, and I'll give you the man." So neuroscience has proven this quote to be correct, where children's experiences in those first 7 years had the formation of these nerve networks. Nerves were formed that is controlled largely by emotion, which will affect the child's behavior throughout his life. So in the article, it was written, it was interesting. It says, an international organization, which is referring to the Jesuits, determined to mold human souls for its own purposes. The Jesuits' brotherhood was spot on in targeting the very young. So therefore, with this information, children that are exposed with whatever information that
Eruption.
they're exposed to in the
Oh,
first year, the first 7 years of life, the information that is they're exposed to, it becomes ingrained in their thinking and behaviors and then that's what happened. They develop into these adults with this information. So it's very important to it's very important those first 7 years of life in a child's life. So I'm sorry, Tiffany.
oh, I apologize. I didn't mean to actually hit the button as quickly as I did. There's a movie about this. It's
Hmm.
like, show me a child at 7 and I will show you him at 40 or her at 40. And
Mm.
it's miraculous. I mean, it literally is. And they, maybe I shouldn't say a movie, it's a documentary. They followed children from the age of 7 every 7 years. They filmed them until they were 40. And the similarity, I mean, it was absolutely fascinating, the connections and how similar. And even when I think back to like the types of things that I was doing when I was 7 and the games I was playing and what I thought and how I felt, it's so much who I am.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
know, like I
Hmm.
was playing school, like that's what I wanted to play all of the time. You know, like I was always teaching. I was always, it's very interesting how true that really is.
Hmm. 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 It is. It really is. I was having a discussion with Stephanie yesterday on, how do you balance, the how do you to balance protecting your child but allow them to become free in their thinking and developing their own thinking and becoming confident individuals in society. And it's like, and another question is, how do you navigate raising our children, balancing out, protecting them but yet not allowing them to flourish into confident and free thinkers safely. We see so many people, adults who are suffering because of adverse childhood events. That's what they call it, which are the traumas that occur in early life, in early childhood.
One thing that I think is really interesting, that children naturally want to explore. They naturally want to have new experiences, and so like I don't think it's in any of our values to limit that, but I think
Hmm.
letting that happen in nature more so than just around people, because it's the interactions with people and what they're saying and how they're thinking and their perceptions that tend to then create illusion and delusion a lot of times, unless you're around really clear people all of the time. And so I've found that the more time we just allow Jade to just be in nature and be with animals and be with Mother Nature and the earth and the trees and the bees and everything, she grows exponentially. And then when she's hanging around other children, which is very valuable, then she comes home with all of these other things that would have never even entered her mind because of what the parents of the kids have said or done. It's just, I don't know. I don't know if
I know.
you know what I mean?
Because
I'm like, I just let them play in nature and to have their own thoughts for the first 7 years, and that's some of the philosophy of the homeschool that we're doing is in Waldorf, which has its issues as well, and we don't use any specific curriculum, but the curriculum of that particular is the first 7 years are supposed to just be exploration, play, not like shipping a child off and making them sit down and be indoctrinated by only one teacher or one adult.
Mm, okay. So is that how you're in your school, in the homeschooling program that you're doing or implementing?
Yes, we're doing very much for the first 7 years of her life. And there's a lot of study that shows this as well, that um, not focusing on the academics
Hmm.
until the physical components are there, and until the energetic components have been able to shift how they need to shift. And so we we don't focus on, the reading and the writing and the math and those details as much as we focus on moving and learning how to plant something and learning how to be honorable and respectful to each other and to the plants and to the bees and the trees and the ants that are walking. It's just very
Hmm.
much a nature based immersion. And the types of conversations that she has with her friends who are also in this experience with us,
Hmm.
it's next level. It is so, it's like their conversations at a level that I was having in high school, from like evolution, not like too mature of a conversations. You know what I'm saying? Like
Hmm.
higher level thinking conversations, not higher level experience that are inappropriate for children conversations.
Let's see. But okay, so then let me ask you this. What is your recommendation for a parent who's unable to homeschool because they have to work, but at the same time they've got to send, so therefore they got to send their child to a school.
I would
So,
say learn a lot of protection skills,
hmm.
and learn how to clear your child the second they get home from school, or the second you're able to every day. Salt baths every single day. I would say talk to your children. Don't assume that what they've learned is okay to stay in their brains without conversations. They might need to unlearn more than they've learned that day.
Hmm. Yeah, I like
Truly.
that.
Having had that
Mhm.
experience myself, like as a student and as a teacher, that's just there's so much unlearning that has to happen just based on what the kids talked about at school, let alone what the frequencies were there.
Right, right. I'll tell you how I raised my kids. And I may have traumatized them in a different way though, but I mean, I educated them very early of potential dangers early in life so that they can recognize it, because that was my thought, at very young, so that if they confronted something, somebody confronted them, they can say no and ask for help and speak up. Because I found that I didn't know anything when I grew up. During my generation, they just kept it quiet. They pushed things under the, swept out things under the rug and so forth. And then therefore, if the child doesn't know, the person doesn't know, they're left vulnerable because they have no idea what's going to be happening to them.
So that's so interesting, because I hear everything you're saying, and I feel like I've have done the opposite in some ways, which might be sheltering her too much, simply because I grew up in the 80s, and everything we were watching, first of all, we were watching TV, which was an issue, but everything that we were
Hmm.
watching on TV was about kids being kidnapped and like all sorts of nonsense. And I grew up so afraid of everything.
Hmm.
But then I
Hmm.
also knew what to do when the white van pulled up, right? Like, so it was all of that. And but I so I just don't really let her out of my sight very often.
But see, the thing is,
That's how
that's
I'm
probably
combating
why.
that reality.
That's
I'm like,
probably why you raise your kids that way. Because
yeah,
I mean, I was a working mom, a single parent mom, so
right,
I had
right,
to like teach them because I wasn't going to be around them. So I'm like, this is what happened. They were like, oh, do we have to watch this again? I'm like, yes,
right,
yes, so that you knew what was going on, what's out there, and you can tell them no, because your mom's not afraid of anyone or anything. You
right.
can tell me, you know.
Totally. Well, and there's so much value in that. And I think, like her world is for the most part full of puppies and rainbows. And, when someone steps on an ant, she's horrified. Like, why would they ever do that? Or if someone's spraying pesticides, she's like, don't they know that they're hurting themselves and the air and so there's this like, there are these two extremes. And then there is this
Yeah.
maybe happy medium. But um, I don't, it's so interesting. Although, and then I grew up with just, you know, expecting people were going to smoke and drink and do all these things all the time. And she's horrified if she sees a cigarette butt and wonders, like, tells people like, do you know cigaretting is bad for you? It's not. She calls it cigaretting. It's you're breathing in poison. Like, why do you want to hurt yourself? So I don't know what's right. I guess we just all do the best we can do with the current knowledge
Yeah.
we have.
I like how she speaks up,
Oh
confident,
yeah, I'm
confident.
not so sure everyone else likes it, but she sure is gonna say it all. But you know, we talk about it too because she's presented with things like it's impossible to go to the beach and not see something or to see someone sleeping naked on the sidewalk somewhere in California. Like that's going to happen. So we have
Hmm.
these conversations too.
Right, right,
I
right. You
think I
have
just
to.
wait till they're presented. I don't present any of them. So maybe I need
Yeah,
to rethink some of
she's
this.
still young because she's under 7. So I
Oh
think
yeah, right. So she's
you're
still
born.
5, and you know,
Yeah.
there's something also that happens at 7, in the ether with children, is that they from 0 to 7, they are like in between, their bodies in the spiritual realm. Like, I mean, we all are always, right? But they very
Hmm.
much are. They're like always in this, that's why their creativity, and it's so important to have creativity at that level. They're like always in this in between state. And then at 7, they're in their bodies more and they pop into that realization more. And so it's just, they're
I
ready for
believe that.
different. Yeah. Yeah.
I believe that because it's like things that I had said before 7. I don't know where it came from, but it was must have been if from like a past life or whatever. And then I stopped saying that. And then, but sometimes I'll remember it, or my parent or someone said, "Don't you remember saying that?" I'm like, "Oh no, not really." So
I had
I
a
believe
friend's
that.
child the other day say, he just was looking like very pensive, and his mom was like, "What's going on?" And he said, "What year was Papa born, or was he alive or something?" And she said 1925, and he was like, "Yeah, that's the year that I was in his body." She was like, "What?" She was like, "Yeah," or he said, "Yeah," and then he was like, "And then what happened in like 1980?" And she was like, "Well, that's when I was born." He was like, "Yeah, that's the year I was in Grandma's body because I wanted to be with you." And then it was just fascinating. And she was like, "So what do you mean?" And he was like, "Well, you know, back then, back when Papa was born in the 1920s, everybody's doors were closed. And he actually had to tell his door to stay open so other beings could enter it." He was like, "Now everybody's door is open." And she was like, "Well, what do you mean? What makes people's doors be open and closed?" And he was like, "Oh, well, people who use their phones all the time or eat sugar or use pesticides or think really bad thoughts or are always angry." He said that keeps people's doors open. And he said people's doors, then people can come in at any time into their bodies. I was just like, what are you talking? Oh my goodness. I was like, that
Yeah,
all
so
makes
that
perfect
sounds like a
sense.
bad thing. That means sounds like a bad thing, a
That's what I'm
non-protected.
saying. Like it sound, you know, so then, and that's what happens, right? When we are in a low vibration, anything can come in, you know,
Mm, mhm,
anything
mhm,
can attach to us, for lack of a better word. And so he was, but it was interesting. He was having that remembrance. And she said, "Is this something that you remember or something you just know?" And he said, "No, it's just something I just know." And he was like,
mhm,
"Since I was born, I've not really gone into anyone else's body though." It,
mm.
so just the things that children say, and like Jade and all of her friends talk, like Jade will look at herself sometimes and be like, "Is this a dream? Am I just dreaming? Do you think this is all just a big dream, Mom?" You know, and because they just are like in those states of just having normal conversations about things a lot of people don't talk about.
That's really interesting.
I
Wow.
wanted to can I comment as well? And look at
Yes,
spirit,
please.
that's on expecting
Go ahead.
gratitude. It's interesting you say that, Tiffany, too, and Delilah, that Dr. Delilah, you bringing this up about the children as they're younger. I remember when my children were younger, probably under 7, they would say similar things to what you're saying, Tiffany. They didn't call it a door or anything like. They would like ask me questions like, "Oh, did we live at this house from the time I was born? When did you all move here?" You know, and they would tell me things like that they remember seeing things. They remember seeing us when we moved in. They weren't even born then. And they
Mhm,
remember seeing
mhm,
their dad like putting stuff, information on the phone and, and telling, saying things like, "We picked, I remember seeing you and dad before I was born." They would say things like that. And And they would say things about my mom who's transitioned on, about how she said things to them and they knew things about her. And what I was thinking about was after that time period, then it like changes after they reach that age, like maybe 7, then do they start becoming more vulnerable to the influences of the third
The external
dimensional
world.
world, and then they
Yeah, the
forget
external.
like that whole spiritual
Mm,
aspect, and then they start like losing that spiritual memory, or it takes a back
mhm,
seat, and then they start becoming more vehicular, like human, right? And so
mhm, mhm.
it's quite interesting to me. It's like we're going backwards as we get older or something.
Yeah,
Well, and
it's
that's it's
true.
interesting because I mean there are books written about this. Rudolf Steiner even wrote a few books about like just what you're saying, that the they become so aware of their body in the third dimensional realm that then that's what their focus becomes, and they almost do in a sense not lose that connection, but their focus isn't on that connection because they recognize the separation more,
Mhm, mhm,
and
mhm.
it's and I feel like the older I get now, the more awakened I am, right? And so like we go through this whole middle part of young and middle part of life that then focuses on everything else, and we're like, wait, that's not what we're supposed to focus on.
Right,
And then
right,
we move back into where we're trying to understand how to get to where we want to go,
right. And
spiritually.
go ahead, Stephanie. And la question veritas, honor, respect, and gratitude. I saw.
In
I
the
meant to.
Kitchen Veritas, honor, respect, and gratitude, everyone. I think it's wonderful that we now have the opportunity to cultivate and work with the children, coming out of their theta state or during their theta state, um, for things that we didn't know because we were forced to be a certain way and
Mhm,
lose those aspects of the spirituality and the connection there. And like my youngest brother, he would always say to us, when I was an old boy, I used to work in the field. And we would laugh at him. And we'd be like, what are you talking about?
mhm,
But he was having visions of him in another lifetime.
mhm, mhm,
But we have been taught that, you only live once. So when he was speaking about these things, it was comical to us because we're like, you only live once. So what are you talking about when you were an old boy? But
mhm.
I think it's just marvelous that, as the generations come forth, we have the opportunity, and like especially Tiffany, myself with my grandchildren, to cultivate those things and not force the things of the world, basically,
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
and their thinking and the doctrine and all of the mess that we've been brainwashed with.
yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, so we have that position and that power to bring that forth, not just to our children, but all of the children, so
Yeah.
that the future is going to be much brighter and better
Mhm.
than what we've been indoctrinated with.
Yeah, I also think that, as we work on ourselves, raising our vibration and so forth, I think some of those memories can come back because I remember as a little girl, and I remember telling my mother, I said, "You're not my mom. You're Kuka." And she was like, "What?" I'm like, "You're Kuka. You're not my mom." you know? And Kuka was somebody that I guess took care of me, but I said, "My mom's not here, but you're not my mom." And they just took it as, child's play and everything. But, I had like forgotten, but I was maybe 5, 4, during that time I had forgotten about it, but that memory resurfaced more recently. And I was like, yeah, I used to think that way. Why? And I'm like, it must have been something in a previous lifetime and so forth. And then I'm hearing, then it clicks too when I hear stories like what you're sharing, Tiffany, and what Serenia is sharing, where I think I even also read that this young boy was looking at his mom or young girl, and his hands are on the hips. He says, don't you remember when I was the mom and you were the child? you know and kids say that at a young age. So
In Lakesh Veritas, with honor, respect, and gratitude, this
thank you.
conversation has been so enriching and empowering. I'm just over here like my mouth is kind of wide open, like, oh, this is brilliant. Um, it's so interesting because I'm right at the point of like, yes, I have a child that's kind of transitioning to this next stage, and
Mhm.
I'm literally over here staring at her and seeing how she's navigating, the world and her experience, and
Mhm.
thinking back to my own experience, and it's so interesting. Like I think about like we are always reminded to ground ourselves, connect to Mother Earth, and it's even more so grounding to connect with our child because or our children, because like it really helps me to take a step back. Something that I have constantly had to work on is control, and as a teacher it's even more amplified, and stepping into that realm of homeschooling and some of the things that Tiffany spoke on is just so important to really relinquish that control, because when we try to hold on to that control, we really take away the imagination and creativity for our children, and that's the beauty of it all. um
Mhm.
I've had to unlearn a lot of my teaching practices to make sure that they have that space to be creative. And within that, I can see like sometimes Mello would like to like sit down and do like workbooks and things like that, but that's that balancing between academia of what her father have experienced growing up and what is expected of us, or what is expected as a parent in this world, what you're supposed to do to show that your child is academically excelling. So like she will step into that, but she can kind of step away from it. But
Oh,
something
good.
that really came
Good.
to mind, and Tiffany started speaking on it as well, is that idea of media and television. And I'm in that space of trying to find balance. Like I know she's a child, she's going to gravitate towards television, and it's okay and within moderation, and depending on what she's receiving and taking in. But I see where the concern of programming from television comes in,
Mhm.
and some of the behaviors, like she hasn't had the opportunity to really be around children as often. Her homeschooling is really just her siblings, so, her having that chance to like, we're at the playground right now. She's like, Mommy, I'm gonna go make this friend. I'm like, okay, well, go enjoy yourself. Like you don't have to check in with me. And it really makes me
Mhm.
think about the idea of like who she's gonna be at 40. And I have more work to do because I see how she is very anxious about things, and it's just like, look at your brother, look at your sister, they're fearless, they're courageous, they're like, Mommy, I'm gonna go do this, I don't care if you're gonna say yes or no, I'm gonna go do it.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
she's on the other side of it, so really helping her be encouraged to step out, it's okay. And
And
seeing
be
her grow in a
confident.
lot of different.
It's
Exactly.
the confidence. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's so interesting because, thinking about the divine feminine and thinking about how, as women and girls, we are suppressed of, being confident and being powerful and being within our own, right. And I see it with her. And so really trying to teach and empower her within that space to really, expand herself. And
Mhm.
it's interesting because like she has understanding of kind of both sides of it. Like she understands the spirituality of it. Like it's some TV programs that she'll watch that speak about that, and so she's like, "Oh, well, is this what it is was talking about?" Or I've kind of experienced this, or I've seen this. So like really encouraging her to have that conversation. Oh, and
Mhm.
this is for all three of them. And then to your last point about, for some reason, for my youngest, I call her mama. Like ever since she was in utero, I'll be like, okay, mama, come on. And it seems so natural in a sense. And it's so weird because it's just like I'm the mother, but I'm calling my child the mom. And
that's one dynamic that I see happening. But then even Miles, he really refers to Melody as mom. And some of that is because like when I was pregnant with the youngest, Mia, he would go to her because that was his comfort. That was the next, female
Mhm.
figure within his space. But he'll say certain things like, yeah, well Mello said this before. And I'm like, before when? And it'll be kind of referencing, a past life. And it's just like, you really all are connected. And when they're having their temper tantrums, I'll be like, well, you chose this. You chose him as your brother. You chose her as your sister. You chose to be in the, order that you're in. And they're just like, no, no, I didn't. And I'm like, but you did. Um, and they're like, no. And I'm just like, well, take a moment to just see the truth in it. Like, you chose this reality for yourself. Can you step into gratitude for it? Like, it might be hard right now, but it's a lesson for us all to learn. Um, but really, it's really remarkable to see them. And like, I think back to 7. I had to really like think hard. I'm like, what was I doing at 7? And I see how a lot of the characteristics that were present there still are here today. I'm not quite at 40 yet, but um it's beautiful because I'm like, even though I had those characteristics, I know I don't have to stay in that.
Mhm.
And I saw something today and it was just saying you forget who you are so that you can become something better than what you were.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
that really resonated within me because a lot of times I'm just like, why can't I remember? Like, what am I forgetting? But then it was just like, yes, I forgot who I was on purpose so that I can create a better version, so I can be better than what I was, so I can continue to grow. And
Mhm.
something that I do hold on from teaching is metacognition, and that's just speaking what I'm thinking, speaking what I'm, thinking through. And I really share that with my children, especially within, just parenting in general, but teaching because then it helps them to expand themselves and to see like, yes, I am processing a lot of the same things that you all are processing at different levels. And this
Mhm.
really is a, experience of oneness of you might have a better understanding of it than I do. And I really have to humble myself sometimes because they are closer in, connection to source and all that is and to understanding some of it. So sometimes I really just sit and listen to what they're saying because they have the answer sometimes. And
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
so interesting. As of lately, we've had so many instances of like, I'll think something and then they'll verbalize it. And I'll just sit and smile like, oh my goodness, we are truly in one mind.
Yep.
And
Connected. Yep. Yep.
and
That's
they
the
they
frequency.
are in marvel, like they are seeing the beauty of it too. Because I like, I was about to say that, and they're like, "Hi, mommy, we're connected." I'm like, "Absolutely, honey.
That's
Absolutely."
so cool. That's
So
so cool.
yeah, again, I'm just really like, it was so many great, beautiful pieces of information and experiences brought forth that it's just like, oh my goodness, like I'm just in gratitude to be in this space with you all and to see where our children are about to be elevated to. Like this, we are really changing the space for them to have the most expansive experience. And that's
Mhm.
just going to help us
Mhm.
all. And it's going to be
Yeah.
so beautiful.
Yeah. It is changing. Everything's changing. Yes, Anahari.
Woohoo!
Anarchy Veritas. Honor, respect, and gratitude.
That's it. That's all I have to say.
That's all you
Woohoo!
should hear.
Invocation Veritas with honor, respect, and gratitude. What an incredible, incredible conversation tonight, ladies. Thank you very much. Awesome. Awesome. Tiffany, Stacy,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
Serenia,
mean, and
Stephanie, Dr. Delai. Just absolutely incredible conversation. Thank you so much.
yeah, and then I mean, it just thinks, because sometimes, when I was younger, I was like, "Am I different? Well, I'm thinking this, but it's not status quo with everybody else." And then you kind of like what Serenia was saying. You forget. You're like trained to forget, and then fall under these rules and regulations and so forth. But now it's time to allow our children to be free, because I think that that's what suppresses our children from feeling confident in speaking their truth and being able to speak out, and we've got to help them and assist them. Tiffany, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
oh no, all of that is so true, and thank you everyone everything you brought forward. I think that um, I was just going to say two things. One, the amount that they are teaching us, because they chose us to be in this experience, so they're having this experience when they're with us, and then they're teaching us when they're here. This experience is just so beyond magical, and
Hmm.
I'm in such deep gratitude for.
Hmm.
I also wanted to say just two little tidbits when Stacy was talking. Stacy, I had to backtrack so many things that I did. Like when Jade was 2, I was like teaching her Spanish and reading and writing and math, and then I'm like, what do I do? And so, then I had to step back and shift into when I learned, what was in her highest and best interest. Um, and I also, in terms of the television, have found that it's the commercials that are the issue. It's not like the random shows that like we've pre-screened that we
You
think
know,
like
you're absolutely right,
it's the
because that's where they
commercials.
could. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
absolutely right.
we
You
had the
know,
Super
that's.
Bowl on, and we were like, what's the harm in this? Like we watch football. I know a lot of people don't, but like we do, and we enjoy it, and it's fun, and we like throw the football in the backyard. And like it's not even something that she necessarily sees as violent. She sees it as a fun sport when she plays it with her friends. But then there's a commercial about a cocaine bear, and we're like, oh, we can't even watch. You've got to
I
be
know, and
kidding
it's
me!
but they're trying to force you to pay for no commercials.
Oh,
But that's what they're programming. That's what they're trying to do.
it's
It's another way
right.
to monetize the whole system.
Totally,
You
and to
know,
just put outlandishness out there, I feel like.
right?
I also wanted to say that calling for like-minded friends and clearing the path of every single place we go, every single child who's ever where we are, they're all in this experience of openly talking about all these things. So all of the
Hmm.
time, where it's just the conversations are just magical that all of these
Hmm.
kids are having, and they're confident in it, like you were saying, and they're just speaking freely about truth. When you get all of these babies in their amazing theta state, like Stephanie was saying, it's spectacular, and there's so much that we could learn from
Yes, yes,
the other side
absolutely.
from them.
Now,
Yes.
are we calling them babies? Is
Now,
Stephanie, they're
I didn't mean to
betas?
say babies. I didn't mean to say babies. They're theta. I was
I mean,
looking at
children.
Jade.
So are
Children.
they beta? Well, I
So
like the
0 to 7, I
term.
think, is theta.
Is theta
It's a
THETA?
THETA, the theta state.
Theta
Um,
state. Okay.
yeah, and then they move into I think it's an alpha state afterwards. I could be incorrect, or beta. I don't know, but the theta state is that 0 to 7 ethereal space, which it's also why a lot of uh, homeschool programs, or even school programs that focus on these types of things we're talking about, use certain colors to bring forward the theta state and honor it. And it's not like super sharp bright colors, it's more like the pinks or the pastel blues, and different colors are connected to different brain state and waves. And so that's a whole nother conversation, um, but theta
Uh-huh.
state, I'm pretty sure, is what it is that Stephanie was saying.
Okay. Okay.
Can I mention something as well? I
Please.
thought of something. I was wondering, like the schooling and unschooling thing. I remember speaking with some parents of students when I was in Chicago who were going to like some of the other schools, right? That's where they paid a lot of money, right? And they were being very educated very differently than the children in the public school where I was going. And these are not schools like Montessori or Waldorf or anything. These are like the schools. Like the private schools that spend a lot of classical, have classical education. And what I found very interesting, because some of the parents that I knew that had their children there, they were very upset that they were paying like $10,000 a year, in pre-K for a child just to play, right? Because what I thought it was very interesting that those schools understood the whole purpose, of play and letting the children be a certain kind of way, but they were pushing the whole other type of education down for the other students so that they can lose that whole play, like, that whole experience of being a child experiencing that spiritual side. So, I laud you guys who are able to homeschool your children or unschool them and unschool ourselves with information that we have, because I do definitely agree that the children, people know, the people who are trying to keep us in a particular area, type of thinking. Because I remember even when that whole Einstein thing came out, they would play the music, have these bright colors, do this, you stimulate these children in this kind of way, and I'm like, it's all a game to try to keep you, to dull the senses and to dull the spiritual senses and that. So I just wanted to say that it's just something that came up, and so it was just an awareness.
Interesting. Sounds like, they implemented Montessori education saying that it was free thinking, but I guess that's a question as well. I'm not knowledgeable of that. But yes, I remember, Bach brain and all that other stuff, because I even bought into that and bought that. And the kids are like, what's this? And I would play it in the car, thinking I'm doing something. But anyway, well, thank you everyone for such an enlightened conversation. Really appreciate it. I guess we're going to have more discussions about this as we help our children, develop, evolve, and become, you know, um, the leaders of our future world. Because we're in a reset.
And
That's for sure.
And Dr. Delilah, before we end, I just wanted to kind of bring up a quick point. A lot of our children are the types that would be diagnosed with ADHD and this
Yes.
learning disability.
Yeah.
And my training and my background is special education, and I really, as we're talking about this, I worked with quite a range of ages, but I'm thinking about even those children that were past the age of 7, but they still held on to a lot of these features. And it's just so important for us to really still see their difference, but see that it's a beautiful difference because it's really helping them to connect to their true identity. And it's something that's not praised, it's something that they are ostracized about, but instead it's really keeping them in this creative state. And as I'm thinking back to some of my students, like I would just laugh because it was like they would just bring so much joy, and it's so much joy that they wouldn't be able to experience within their traditional classrooms. But giving them that space to be free and be themselves, like they continue to keep the creativity and imagination going. So just being able to see our children for who they are and continue to foster that that growth and that understanding is so important for everyone involved. But yes,
Yeah.
this has been so dynamic, and I really do hope we can continue it in the
Oh
Catching
yes.
Veritas.
Yeah. Definitely. But there's studies that have shown that the children's diagnosed with ADD and ADHD, they have high IQs.
Absolutely.
They're highly intelligent. They're actually admitting to that now. Instead of causing it create saying it's a pathology. Well, they are saying it because then they have an increased incidence of addictions and so forth. But that's because their needs aren't met. So I think that it's been a mislabeling and a misunderstanding of these children that we have with ADHD and ADD that tend to be highly, and if you look at them, look at all the people that were, diagnosed with ADD, ADHD as a child and then as an adult, they may have some what we call in society dysfunctional behaviors, but they're real intelligent individuals, creative and all that. And it may have been that they were stifled as a child, so that's just something to think about.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining. I want to remind everyone our whole responsibility meditation sessions on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 6 a.m., 12:30 p.m., 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and 6 a.m. Eastern Time, hosted by Inlika Studios. And also another meditative experience, Dolphins and Whales meditation, the first, second, and third Sundays of every month, hosted by ofthesun.com. And then the next self-healing class is coming up this Sunday, April 30th at 8 p.m., titled Earth Part 16. Just go to ofthesun.com for more information and to register. And then I want to remind everyone of our next Divine Nation workshop hosted by Enlica Studio One, hosted by Diane Annis, next Friday. Not this Friday, but next Friday, May 5th at 8 p.m. Working with the Call for Truth Divination cards, a complement to the Call for the Truth publication, written by Lota Rasul, completely free. And then we've got our next virtual book club scheduled for next Thursday, May 4th. And Diane, are you available?
In,
It's on to yes.
in
Thank
Lakesh
you.
and Veritas on respect and gratitude. Yes. Next Thursday, we will be talking about the hidden messages in water by Masura Emoto. And he has taken water and found when you give the water, like we give in Lakesh to the water, but if you give the water love and gratitude or you ignore it, and he's done lots of studies with this, and then he's taken the ice crystals and looked at them under a microscope, and if it's been had good words, positive words like love and gratitude, the crystals are beautiful, and if it's been ignored, the crystals don't form well. And that's just a little basic, but there's many things in this book that he talks about. He does all kinds of studies with different waters, but the basic is that thoughts change the frequency of the water. So I think it'll be a really good discussion because water is so important for all of us, and we can talk about many things about water. So,
Yeah.
and
So
it's
yeah,
great to
that's
do
exciting.
experiments like with the kids, to just put a glass of water and put the word love on it and then taste it, see if it tastes different than one that maybe you ignore and don't look at for a while, so I think it'll be fun. I hope you can all join us. Thank
Thank you.
you.
The last one was a great discussion. It was with Call for the Truth Divination, Call for the Truth publication, and Lota Rasul was the guest speaker there. It was a really great book club event. So I'm looking forward to next Thursday for, with the discussion on the hidden messages of water. So
I
thank you,
wanted
Diane.
I wanted to
Thank you.
ask where are the recordings of the book clubs, where are they going to be posted?
I have it on my website under the book club tab.
So can you repeat what your website address is again, Diane?
InLakeshStudio1.com. And I believe it's there. I might have put it on the homepage, but I can't remember. I think I just put it on in the other page. That's where it is, I
Okay.
believe, right now.
Okay. Great.
Are you
Great.
going to put it on any other platforms?
I don't know. I don't
Well, I
have
think
another
Of the Sun
platform
is
at
gonna,
now.
yeah, I think Of the Sun's gonna be posting some of the content from that,
Okay.
Yes.
eventually. So that's going to be that should be shared. But Diane will have like the whole recording available on her website.
Yes, I have it. It says previous session recording. It's on the under the Evolutionary Book Club tab where you can register for the sessions. It says in there the previous session recording, but I would take any suggestions as to where else I could post it. I'm not quite sure where
That
would
would be
be another
great.
place to post it.
So we'll talk more about that. That'll
Yeah.
be great. We'll talk more about that. Thank you. Thank you for that question, Stephanie. I appreciate that. And let's not forget Gloria Gardens subscription with Of the Sun, using it as a great resource on tips about growing our own food. We talked about the electroculture, how it can help support our garden, cause it to flourish. I'd like to share that, out here where we are in Georgia, we're getting quite a bit of growth around here. We got the roses budding. We've got our crops sprouting beautifully. So just wanted to share. And then I guess we got the chickens clucking, but we haven't seen them in a while. There's somebody else's. But so everyone, thank you for joining this and participating in the discussion. Is very much appreciated with much gratitude. Look forward to seeing you again next week as we delve into some more enlightening discussions. And remember, our words have power, and knowledge, which is power, and our impeccability in how we use our words is very important. So as we take action from this knowledge into a direction of truth, with honor, respect, and gratitude, and Lakesh and Veritas, everyone. Thank you.
And Lakesh and
Question,
And
Veritas.
question,
Lakesh and
respect and
Veritas.
gratitude.
Honor, respect, and gratitude.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.